Thank you very much. I'm going to start off with email addresses. I would encourage you to get a piece of paper and a pen. If this is like anything I've done in the past, you're going to want to jot a few things down. Also, I'm going to be referencing some worksheets and some things that people can do both with their teams and for themselves personally. So you have my email address, you have Mary's. If you have any questions afterwards, if you have want some of the information that I reference, by all means, email, and I'm more than happy to share anything. I would like for this to be as interactive as possible with this many participants and not having the full chat available. I'm going to be relying on the chat box down at the bottom, and Mary will be monitoring that. I will check in pretty frequently and make sure we're moving in a direction that makes sense to you all. Please feel free, probably more important with this than in person, since I don't get any feedback from faces, for you all to just sort of put in on chat if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you have a point for any reason whatsoever. That's really my whole feedback loop, and Mary will be monitoring that for me, and I'll check in. I want to start off by saying that if you're new to Pankey, Dr. Pankey talked about the know your work part of his tools. And Pankey is well known for technical, for occlusion, for really excellence in dental care. But in Dr. Pankey's definition of know your work, there are actually three parameters. One is technical, one is behavioral communications, and one is psychology of knowing your patient. So he actually looked upon three parts of knowing your work, technical being a part of it. So I like to share with people that I became a much, much better dentist when I devoted much, much more time to the soft skills of understanding patients, understanding psychology, understanding communications. Then I was able to do much more of the technical work. With today's environment the way that it is, this is probably the greatest opportunity there's been for a long time for a small relationship-based dental practice. But that will require enhanced team and patient relationships. A dental futurist many, many years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, Avram King, came up with three styles of practice. And then not too long after that, he said basically there's going to evolve to be two types of dental practices. They will both have doing dentistry in common. One will be the business of practice, where one puts the business first and the patient second. The other will be a relationship-based practice where you put the patient first while also considering the business and the technical skills. So that's what we're about a little bit here today. And especially in this environment, patients are distressed. There's more dis-ease than there has been in many, many years. Society has a palpable undercurrent of stress. I think they can actually look towards a relationship-based practice for a sense of comfort and care. So as we move forward, we're going to be talking mostly about the 5 parts of team building that will enhance patient relationships and patient care. So this is the framework of where we're going. We start with why. That is the foundation of your practice. It's your vision, your why. For those of you who are familiar with the Pankey Cross of Life, we want to consider that for yourself, for your family, for your team, for your patients. You want to try to have a balance of love, work, worship, and play in your life. So that should be a large part of what your vision is. Just as important is, why would anybody care? What's in it for them? Both for team, family, patients, and community. When I first came back from my very first Pankey experience, I was so moved. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I came home and told my wife exactly what I wanted to do. I kind of forgot to make her part of that process and that team. But she would tell you now that I've been doing it for a long time, that it's the best thing that's ever happened for our family, for our marriage. And it's just been a wonderful experience with team. The how is to be a leader. A leader sees more in others than perhaps they even see in themselves. A leader shows the way, teaches the way, and that's all done by a basis of kindness. There's no question that an optimistic, kind, thoughtful leader ends up getting more out of a team. The next thing is the who, not how. Wonderful book written by Benjamin Hardy. Who, not how. You can search for it. But a competent, cohesive, purpose-driven team makes everything you do easier. An engaged team gives you the explosiveness to become engaged customers, to engage customers and get, excuse me, I hit something there. There we go. So that's kind of the foundation. Your vision needs to start with your why. I strongly encourage people to consider their strategic future. Think 10 years ahead. What would you like your practice to be like? What would you like your family life to be like? How old will your children be? Will your children still be in the house? We can sometimes lose sight of the 10-year focus if we stay too focused on today. So start with yourself, start with a big vision. From that vision, you can back down into annual goals. And those are a specific development from a bigger vision. So let's pause there. Mary, I've kind of rambled through a few of the things. What's going on with respect to comments, conversation, chat?
Not too much right now in terms of the chatting. I'd like to hear more from everybody about what they're hearing. I like the way you're laying this out, Bill, and I think people are curious about what's coming next, about where it goes from here. And I do think that the who is the particular one that there's a lot of interest in, is that part about engaging the team, about getting them involved in this whole process. So I'm anxious to hear what you're going to have to say more about that.
Wonderful. Happy to move on. I see Jen has raised a hand. I am not sure if I know how to engage her in that. I apologize. I don't know how to do that.
Melvin also wants to hear more about the why. It's the why. He's saying the why is so important. He wants to hear about that too.
Okay.
So I want to do, let me start this again. Okay.
There you go, Jen.
Okay. Can I talk?
Please.
Oh, okay. I can't type as well as I can talk. How are you, Bill? It's good to see both of you.
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you. Good to hear you.
I was kind of, this is so good. Anything, when you think of the 10 years where I was 10 years ago thinking out, but I'm interested in the how, in terms of helping teams transfer leadership to each other in a loving environment, and how they can kind of popcorn it back to each other. Because I think that we all have leadership skills, and sometimes they get underutilized because maybe somebody's a little bit more quiet, and how to bring out the leader and others, and allow them to flex and experiment with their leadership, and then be able to pull it back a little bit on how to do that. Does that make sense?
Sort of, and I know you have a fair amount of experience in that, so help me understand what you're thinking.
Well, I'm thinking, you know, when you work with a team and or work with a leader, and you want to transfer that leadership over to a doctor and help them be a leader, and they want to stay more kind of in harmony, let's say, if you want to use strengths, and how to kind of push them out of the nest to fly a bit and test it a bit, when they really do have the capacity. I mean, they have to understand the why, but really it doesn't always have to be the doctor being the leader. I think that my belief is that leadership can be transferred to each other we can all learn from each other, and how to if everyone understands the why, and just showing people that they all can contribute, you can all teach each other everything. And I'm noticing since post-COVID, a lot of changes in teams, in terms of hiring, in terms of confidence, in terms of fear. And it used to be a lot easier a year ago to people to take risk. I feel like everyone's kind of back down on that Maslow of just being in a place of fear, or just figuring out how to pay their bills and do certain things. I feel like I'm going through that cycle again, that they're down kind of in the kind of the fear cycle with management. Am I going to have a job? And, you know, especially when managers have had to make changes in terms of benefits and things like that, how do we keep them uplifted and share the vision and share, you know, all of those, the things that are a bit challenging right now with COVID.
Jen always has a way of setting things up for you, Bill. I think she just set the table for you for everything you're going to talk about.
I was going to say, and so I appreciate that. Did anything pop up in chat around all of that discussion?
Nope. I think people are wanting to hear what your response is to all of that.
Well, I am clueless. I'm like looking around thinking, oh my gosh, it's 8 o'clock. I got to run up here, because that's like, it's a different conversation from 12 months ago. So, and people are coming from a place of fear, not curiosity.
So let me share a framework that I like.
Okay.
So and I don't have that in here, so play this little game with me. So take a sheet of paper and put a circle on the left side of the column, and draw a line across to the right side of the sheet of paper and put another circle. On the left side is where we are. It's our own self-esteem, it's our own expectations, it's our own reality. On the far right side are the hopes and possibilities. Mm-hmm. And my belief is everybody, and it's certainly a role as a leader, to provide hopes and possibilities to our team and to our patients. And by the way, also to our kids and our spouses. I think our kids are also stuck in that never land between today's reality and hopes and possibilities. So in between those, there's a long line from reality over to possibilities. In between there is what I like to call a fog. And you can literally think of it as a fog. What happens is fog is kind of the fear. Fog is the apprehension. And it's a block. Sometimes the fog is so big we can't even see to the hope and possibility. And as a leader, our job is either lead people through the fog or give them the courage, preferably, to blast through the fog. Now, the more you give responsibility to other people, the more they will perform. So as we come back, certainly when we came back from COVID, it wasn't us laying down the dictum of everything that was going to be. It was us asking the team members, how do you feel about this? How would you be comfortable? What would you make you most comfortable? How could you communicate that comfort to the patients? So I've always found it helpful to think of that thing in the way as being a fog. And our role as a leader is try to burst that emotional bubble that the fog is. Now, that's obviously in team meetings, and that's really what this next little piece is. If I get to that, there we go. So it actually has to do with positive coaching. And this goes back to my years coaching youth sports. And on the left, you'll see it's be a coach. Be reasonable in your expectations. I can't tell you how often I see a dentist say, do this to a staff member. And the staff member doesn't even really know how to do it better than you do. And then sometimes they do the best they can, and we immediately correct them. And correction stops their growth. Then we need to empathize, get in their shoes, see where they're coming from, what's going on in their household, what are they bringing with them to work. The A, avoid confusion, be organized, be clear, be specific. We're going to get to that a little bit later, so I'll avoid that for now. But then you also complement specifics, overteach, but be careful that you're not using teaching as a form of correction, because correction can be judgment and criticism. So one of my rules is if I catch something on the spot, I can correct it. But many times I'll hold it off for a specific teaching moment, sometime when we've got a break between patients. Always, always, always acknowledge progress. The tiniest little step is acknowledged and celebrated. And you create enthusiasm by being enthusiastic. We all have bad days. I think my staff would have trouble telling you that I had very many bad days. Fake it until you make it. And then part of that is having fun and laughing a lot. So that's the positive way to get people to move along. I'll have a little bit more thoughts as we move in. Is anything else popping up? Jen, does that help? And Mary, is there anything else popping up in chat?
Yes, but one of the things that's coming, a couple of things that are coming up have to do with delegation. And that's, I think that many of us struggle with that aspect of sort of giving something over to somebody else. And I believe that's a learned skill. I think we can learn how to delegate. And I think that there's great learning in that. And the other part is that reinforcing, I think what you're saying, Bill, is the idea of catching people doing something right. Recognizing, as opposed to looking for how to correct, as you said, is to try not to be in the correction mode as much as finding what appears to be working and looking for ways to address that. That's what I've been hearing so far.
Okay, I'm getting ready to move off into that. But I will say with positive coaching, we were discussing before all the participants got on about dogs and labs and puppies. And one of my joys is taking shelter abused dogs and retraining them. And you have to take the babyest little steps. You have to reward the tiniest little thing. And then you go on and on and on. And I do think we forget that with our team. If you're trying to introduce something, it has to be a tiny step, a tiny habit, the smallest possible thing, and then celebrate that. Then move on to the next and the next. So that's that part of that. And let's go on, because the next part is the what, the systems. And that is do the hard work so that you don't have to work so hard. Systems drive everything. When I hear questions about empowerment, my immediate thought is, whose system is it? Many times we didn't dump a system on a team member and expect them to do the work. I prefer to allow the team to develop their own systems. Mm-hmm. And that's fairly easily done. For example, I knew, this was several years ago now, one of my long-term front office people had given me notice that she was going to be retiring. We co-developed job responsibilities, but I knew we were going to have to start at the beginning. So I asked her to list starting the very first thing, from putting the key in the door, to open the door, to turning on the lights, to walking in, to checking the bathroom, to checking messages, to checking the schedule. Just make a brief note of absolutely everything. From that, she developed her day-to-day job description. It was hers, not mine. When a new person came along, it was her responsibility to help the new person get those job responsibilities in the order in which they are comfortable to the new person. Mm-hmm. So when we're trying to empower people, we need to give them the power to develop the system. Even supply ordering, almost anything with respect that's done in a dental office can be a system. In fact, what really got me going on some of this is what I did during COVID was clean out my garage. And here are all my systems pieces. Each one of those is a notebook, and each one of them has something going on with them. Because I've been doing this for a very, very long time, much of that is not my system. Much of what you see there with office management, even practice philosophy, that's things that were my vision that we discussed, but then it became their mission. Our year beginning meeting, which we just finished not that long ago, we always review our bag, our blessings, our accomplishments, and our goals for the year. Now, our blessings in this part are specifically related to the office, to the team, to the patients. And our accomplishments for 2020, quite honestly, were just survival. We really celebrated how we came back, how we supported patients, how we supported the team. And then when we talk about goals, for us, goals is far more a purpose. How are we going to help people get better under our control? So that's all part of a team meeting. And from that, we came up with a purpose for the year of enhancing the trust that in patients who put their well-being in our hands, and our vision to maximize their well-being. Well-being might be a dental technique, a dental technology. Well-being might be just reassuring them that they're okay, that, yeah, they've missed their last 3 hygiene appointments, not their fault. Let's just start now and get better. So that's the way I empower my team. I always involve them in creating whatever it is I expect them to do. Are there questions or thoughts around those? Did I get chat pumping up with that statement, Mary?
You did. One of the things that I'm hearing from Henrik over there in Copenhagen is about we live in a culture that's really more about what's wrong here. And certainly clinically, that's, we're looking for perio disease and caries and all. But if we take that behavior into our leading, then we kill their enthusiasm, right? Dentistry as a profession is set up what we learn in dental school is to look for what's wrong. And if we bring that into our into the conversations that we're having with our team, then we're doing the same thing all over again, right? And the other thing, somebody is saying that they struggle with how to motivate team members. You know, maybe we could talk a little bit, Bill, about the ways of looking at team, about theory X and theory Y, about do team members really want to raise the bar? Do most people come to work really wanting to do better? Or is it our job as a leader to motivate people to do better all the time? What do you think?
I personally think motivating myself is tough enough. I'm not especially good at motivating others, therefore. I do think I'm pretty good at helping people see a bigger vision and a bigger possibility. I like to share the story even of myself when I was beginning to think that it's a good idea to get in shape. I made a commitment to myself that every single day I would put on my exercise outfit and my shoes and take one step out the door. If I took one step out and I decided ain't gonna happen today, I gave myself permission not to. But I had to prepare, I had to take the step out. And what happened, of course, is I think in 2 years, twice, did I not do whatever it is I was planning to do. Initially, it was walk around the block. Then it was run around the block. Then it was run twice around the block. But the point being is it's difficult to motivate people, but you can help them to see a better outcome. And I think that's done when you do allow them to develop their own process. Is that true for everyone? No, it's not. I think what I was very much influenced in my team thoughts from John Wooden, a basketball coach that I grew up with. And today I still follow different basketball coaches. But John Wooden, as a coach, said his role wasn't to force players into his system. His role was to adapt his system to the players that he had recruited. John Wooden had Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the time. Very, very different team, won the championship. Then 3 years later, when he had a 6'8" center, and they had to play a very different style. So that's my role. And if you think about it, for the most part, this isn't always true, but for the most part, people who work in our dental office are not high-driven entrepreneurial type people. If they were, they'd be out doing their own business. So what are their desires? What are their wants? What are their needs? And how can you fulfill that? Many ways to find that out. You know, we have Strength Finders 2.0, which helps to understand people's strengths, their talents. But sometimes that's just a matter of staying in the question, asking them what they want.
And I, you know, as you're saying that, I was remembering for myself as a hygienist who went to work in a practice where the dentist was attending the Pankey Institute and learning some other ideas. And I remember we were doing a preclinical interview and spending time. I was getting to spend time with new patients, you know, more than I had ever spent before as a hygienist. But somebody else in the practice was doing the interview of the patient. And then one day the dentist came to me and said, you know, what would you like to do besides hygiene? And my response to that at that time was, well, I'm happy to do anything. I'll scrub instruments. And he said to me, well, what about doing this interview process? Would you like that? And I was like, well, I would think I died and went to heaven if I got to do that. But my mindset, I wasn't able to think that broadly. So for him to even put that possibility out there for me was a big opening for me in terms of being able to see that sort of thing. And I think that has to be that give and take. Don't you think that, between team and the doctor, can you plant a little seed here and see if that sprouts something? And can you ask a question or invite somebody into doing something that maybe they hadn't thought about before? And the other thing that a question somebody's asking is like, what if you're saying to the team, well, let's talk about this system, but they come up with something that you don't think is the best system in the world? Do we have expectations of people that they'll nail it the first time we ask, well, what your idea for a system? Do we have an expectation that they'll come up with the perfect system right off? Or, I always tend to think about that as developmental. What's your experience with that, Bill?
What I got spinning off on that, if we think back to the Be a Coach, where you're trying to encourage people, if you give people a responsibility to develop a system, say, and it's not quite yours, in almost any conversation, if you break it up by a but, what you really mean to say is, no, that isn't going to work. So one of the tools is to replace but with and. Well, yes, this system, I can see you put some time and effort into it. And if we thought about these couple of tweaks, could we get this a little bit closer to something like this? So it's additive, not critical or subtractive.
So it's both and rather than yes, but.
Yes, but.
Yeah. And, DM says one of the things that I just know is so true in terms of what you're saying, Bill, is that most of us have had someone believe in us more than we believed in ourselves. And that love and encouragement gave us the confidence to achieve so much more than we believed we could. And and other people are saying that they've done this sort of thing with their team, and they're amazed sometimes at how exciting and innovative people really can be.
So the famous discussion around that, which is difficult thought process when you're talking about team, but I'm teaching my granddaughter to ride a bike. And if she starts to do something, I don't say, but, I don't say careful. I say, well, that was really, really good and it's close, and let's try this way next time. We really, really want that hope and possibility of our child to be able to ride a bike independently on their own. So we constantly encourage the progress to that. Simple analogy, but I think it's pretty useful.
Very useful. Thanks, Bill.
So the yes at the top is a yes and it is an intentional leader, which takes all the different aspects that we've been talking into being quite intentional about what you're doing. And the answer to how is yes is a book by Peter Block. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book. But we get stuck in the how-to when in fact we just need to try things. I like to share with people that I have an advantage as a dentist over most other dentists because I was fortunate enough to grow up playing sports and I never felt there was any failure. I may have lost a game, but I had another game. I always had another opportunity. So how is frequently part of that fog. So if we go back to Jen's question, and I encourage people to draw a where you are now and a hope and a possibility, with the gap in between is the frustration, but we all have a fog there. Many, many times we as dentists think we can get through that fog by asking the how question. If you'll just tell me how to do it, I can break through that. The problem is I can give you the hows maybe for how I did it and how my team did it. That may or may not work for you and your team. But doing some steps, taking some efforts, making some mistakes. I think mistakes are the best teachers possible. So I would encourage in this process to just say yes, yes, and be intentional about it. Any thoughts around that, Mary, or any more chat?
Nope. I think you're on a roll.
Well, I don't know about that.
But what I heard is replace yes, but with why not?
Why not?
Why not? And take some action. I like that.
Yes. With my new young partner, he's kind of comes in and asks me something, and frequently my answer is, yes, I tried that, and we can try it again. I did that 20 years ago. Maybe it'll be different now. Probably will be different now. So no question. And then at the top, it's celebrate. We simply don't celebrate our successes enough. We all beat ourselves up. When we talk about what's wrong in society, I'm just going to use this as an example because I do presentations around occlusion. So if you think of a circle, just imagine a circle, but at the top, it doesn't join. There's a gap. In occlusion, most people agree with the big part of the circle. We can agree with 90 to 95% of what occlusion is, but boy, do we like to argue about that 5%. And arguing about that 5% gives everybody the concept that we disagree on things, when in fact we agree on infinitely more. In today's society, there is so much dis-ease. In fact, if it's in the news, you know it's the lowest common denominator of humanity. That's just where we are. When I talk about the possibility at the very beginning of relationship-based dental practices, I think people are craving an island of celebration, an island of acceptance, unconditional acceptance, love, forgiveness. Many patients are coming into us afraid that they've really harmed themselves because they haven't been in for 8, 9, 12 months, whatever it is. I think we can celebrate where we are and move forward. Any thoughts or questions around any of that? Does anybody want to add anything to the chat? I can stop real quick and see if we have any.
My thoughts about the celebration, Bill, is that celebration to me is mutual. It's something we do. We come together to celebrate. That's different from saying to people, oh, you did a good job today. Right? As the boss, I get to tell somebody else they did a good job. But a celebration is we accomplished something. We made a difference today. And I think that the more we look for that in an organization, the more that we're paying attention to and looking for ways to celebrate each other and celebrate what we're accomplishing together, I think the better off the practice is.
Not a day went by that I didn't celebrate at the end. Every single day when I left, I would go, was this a great day or what? It got to be bordering on comical because everybody knew it was happening, but then the team all of a sudden decided to copy me and jump in with it. So to Mary's point, all of a sudden we had a team celebration. So then I started to change it up. And after a while, the team actually got to know that if I said, was this a great day or not, I was trying to convince myself it was. and they actually would chime in and give me some good things that happened in the day that really were worth celebrating. My point is, we think we have to be perfect at celebrating. We don't. We just have to make a conscious act to do it. Another thing that we did last year before COVID, when we were really trying to get things going, is we had a gratitude jar. We got a little glass jar, and we had a whole bunch of marbles, and I gave everybody 5 marbles each day. And their job was to give a marble to somebody else, and that person said thank you, very simply, and put the marble in the gratitude jar. We were maybe 3 or 4 weeks into this before patients were asking us what it was, and we just said it's our gratitude jar. And they were asking to take a marble out and give it to a team member. And then the team started passing a marble off to a patient, and the patient put it in the jar. The point is, there are so many fun ways that we can find to celebrate and make a joy out of it, a game out of it. Way back at the beginning, when I talked about be a coach, enthusiasm was a big part of one. I have to generate enthusiasm. And that was my ending day enthusiasm every single day. Was this a great day or what? Now, of course, it changed a little bit, and sometimes I intentionally changed it up so I surprised them. But that's where the enthusiasm comes from, just celebrating little steps, little things. Anything else? How are we doing here? Oh, we better get going.
Go for it.
So since this is related to the Pankey Institute, I was informed that quite a few people may or may not have been to the Institute. But almost everybody knows about Dr. Pankey, Dr. Pankey's cross, the tools. So on the left are the blending of the cross of life, the conceptual framework, that's the love, work, worship, and play, with Dr. Pankey's contribution to the cross, which is his cross of dentistry: know yourself, know your patient, know your work, and apply your knowledge. So the why really is a part of the cross of love and know yourself. Can you know yourself enough? Can you love yourself enough? Respect yourself enough? Be confident in yourself enough to want to move forward? I don't believe in luck. Luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Preparation is enhanced if you are alert. If you know yourself, you're aware enough of yourself that you can see possibilities. The be a leader, the how, the love crosses over into a respect for patients, to a respect for your team, to being kind, to saying a kind word. It's to knowing your team. It's know about them. We frequently will have one-to-one meetings. Those don't have to be a long lunch. Many times I just stop them in the hallway and just ask, how are you? How are you really? What's going on? And they know I care about that. So they're demonstrated again in many, many ways. The worship is a sense of wonder and awe. That's why that's there. In fact, Dr. Pankey made a point when he put that on there, that a worship is simply a way that you find to re-energize yourself, to re-engage with your better self. It's not a religious thing. So can you see wonder and awe and hopefulness in the others? A leader is one who sees more in others than perhaps they even see in themselves. And the know your work, apply your knowledge should be play. We should be able to develop systems in an atmosphere of wonder and both possibilities, all of those things. In the center of Dr. Pankey's, well, actually Aristotle's cross of life, is happiness. There are actually 3 types of happiness in Greek, and eudaimonia was the happiness he put there. And eudaimonia is the happiness of a life well lived. So I've kind of short-circuited that as joy. My goal, my why, in my vision is to make every day a day of joy. One of the statements I say daily is how can I be a gift to someone today? So that's the little Pankey philosophical part of it. That blends into the Ignite part. Is there anything else that's working on anybody? Anything that's left over in chat? Anything left over?
Keep going, Bill.
Not seeing anything. I've got them dazzled to a level of So the Ignite program is what Mary and I are going to be offering. It will be a very unique year-long program around everything we've talked about. We plan to meet 10 times. They will be Zoom meetings. We'll agree ahead of time what the meeting times are amongst the people that register. We will be limiting the program to 10 people. If necessary, we'll open up one more group, but we want to keep the numbers down. And the reason for that is will be a very unique program of development to learn with others, not for us to teach, but for you to learn, to engage in learning. Each person will have their own path to learn. They'll decide where they want to go, hopefully with the team. And then as they come back in the Zoom meeting and report what they've learned, what they're struggling with, and asking others if they're in a similar situation, what they might have done, how they might help. What you'll really have is 10 voices plus Mary and my own in the room to be a very interactive help session, one against another. That is how you truly develop best practices. It's not my practice because each person has their own individual situation, but it's your leads for your own best practice. So I would hope to stimulate some encouragement, a both and, to consider an intentional participation in a yes, not a how, but a yes. And I promise you a wonderful year of development if you can do that.